Chip Kelly is officially the head coach of the UCLA Bruins football program. It was just announced a few hours ago. The news conference just wrapped up at UCLA. We bring in Tony Siracusa from Last Word on College Football, who's right there at the news conference, took in all the proceedings, all the festivities, all the hype and hoopla. So, Tony, let us know what Chip had to say and what really made an impression on you. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, Mark, good to be with you, as always. Yeah, we were at the press conference today. It's held in the media room at Pauley Pavilion on the UCLA campus. And, they had Dan Guerrero, the athletic director, and Troy Aikman, who, of course, UCLA Hall of Famer, but also on the search committee for the new head coach. Josh Rebholz, who is the associate athletic director and part of the committee, and Casey Wasserman, who is a factor for the school and was part of the committee. And it was interesting. One of the things that came out from Chip Kelly repeatedly was he was perfectly content to stay at ESPN for another year or longer if he was so inclined. Team that was a right fit. He said he didn't want to just get back into coaching for the sake of getting into coaching. Called it a sabbatical. I don't know. You make that kind of money at ESPN and called it a sabbatical, but he certainly did. He said he learned a lot about himself and what he wanted in life, and that his previous ways at Oregon worked well for him. His time in the NFL, not nearly as much wanted out of life. And he's again, he went back to someplace that was a right fit. Hit all the right buttons for the UCLA fans that were here. There were probably about 50 to 60 donors who were in the room as well. And he repeatedly invoked the name of John Wooden, which of course you can't go wrong at UCLA when you do that. He was asked about what his time frame was for hiring a staff. And he said, well, to quote a well-known man, be quick, but don't hurry. And, of course, going to the famous Wooden quote. And so he has started working on it already. They had a meeting with the team this morning at 8:30 so that he could meet the players. He has met personally with all but two of the current staff. The current staff is actually still recruiting, even though they may or may not have a job in the coming weeks. They actually are still working the recruiting trail for UCLA. Of course, there's the early signing period for the first time, which starts December 20th. So things are in a constant state of motion. Kelly himself actually, yesterday, having made this agreement on Saturday, he met with a handful of UCLA recruits who have already verbally committed, wanted to make sure that they were still in the loop to be signed. And so he was on the road already. It's been a busy 48 hours, for UCLA. I have to tell you, one of the things that stood out in terms of the atmosphere, and I spoke with some of the donors who were here, and I also spoke with Josh Rebholz, the associate athletic director and potential future athletic director at UCLA. There's a bit of excitement beyond just, hey, we got a new coach, and it's Chip Kelly. There's a bit of, how shall I put it? They're not thumping their chests, but they're feeling pretty darn good, the school, for their number one coaching choice. Florida had 3 weeks of almost exclusive time of trying to pitch Chip Kelly and woo him and couldn't get the deal done. UCLA swoops in. They fire Mora on Sunday, meet with Kelly's agent Sunday afternoon, fly up to San Francisco actually to meet with him on Tuesday. And as we reported at Last Word on College Football Tuesday night, that pretty much sealed the deal. We reported that night that Kelly was going to choose UCLA, and of course he ultimately did. A tremendous accomplishment. In the last 50 years, there is no history with UCLA football where they went out swinging for the fences, if I can mix my sports metaphors here, and they have made inroads with other coaches and then went to plan B or C, whatever the case may be. This is the first time in anyone who's in this room, in their recent memory, that UCLA targeted a high-end, high-name coach of that caliber and got him the first time out. with Rebholz, he clearly was feeling very pleased about their efforts, not in a braggadocious manner, but in a way that said, you know what, we set out with one goal, and we got it done, and it is just not go unnoticed in this room. DC school for the coach they wanted.
Tony Siracusa on the line from Last Word on College Football, joining us just following Chip Kelly's introductory press conference at UCLA as the new head coach there. Two concerns that in running through the transcript that were asked of Chip Kelly, one directly football related on the field, one involving his status as CEO of this program. So I'll start there. Is obviously the NCAA sanctions at Oregon. Did he address that, and how much did he go into detail in regards to safeguarding against that?
Yeah, he went into as little detail as he possibly could when asked the question. Look, we didn't do right at Oregon. And in order to back up into the story, Kelly was actually hit by the NCAA for not knowing that one of his assistants to this recruiting service who was funneling players to Oregon. The NCAA decided Kelly should have known. He should have. So he was hit with an 18-month show cause tag right about the time he was leaving for the Philadelphia Eagles. And so the NCAA issue, to him, it's been dealt with. It's in the past. He took ownership of it. He said, it happened under my watch. I own it, regardless of who did what. I own it. He has already met with UCLA's NCAA compliance officer twice since agreeing to this on Saturday. So he said they will be setting up programs and communication systems with each other to make sure that everything with regards to recruiting is on the up and up, that there will be major involvement from, or significant involvement, we'll call it, compliance officer for the NCAA.
Tony, the other issue, this more football related on the field, would be, of course, Chip Kelly revolutionized. I'm not going to give him all the credit. Certainly a number of hands into revolutionizing offensive football at the collegiate level that's permeated the NFL now, largely on account of his hiring by the Philadelphia Eagles. But in regards to what's happened since he's left the college game, is that obviously everybody catches up, everybody goes to the camps, and everybody trades secrets, and it becomes more of a mainstream football approach, and it has on the offensive level. I've seen numbers that have actually shown where Chip Kelly's offenses from 5 years ago aren't operating at the same speed, tempo that even offenses are at a large degree now. So maybe the shine's a little bit off of the approach translating to results. We will have to obviously see that. So that being his calling card, is there any kind of concern that he doesn't have that advantage that he once had?
He addressed that, and he seemed unconcerned. He acknowledged that, you know, he's got to make changes and adjustments because the college game has changed in the 5 years since he's been in the college game, and he acknowledged that. And he, you know, someone asked him if, you know, based on the high voltage kind of offense that he ran at Oregon, can we expect to see that at UCLA? And his answer was, no, all those kids from Oregon graduated. You know, he tried to add a little bit of levity to it, but he acknowledged that there were going to have to be some adjustments. And what he said was UCLA under him will not be running a system. It will not be a system program. Each year will be tailored to the talent that he has. What they do on the field, how they operate, is going to be tailored to what they have talent-wise. So year one will be based on, you know, the players that they have coming back. There is no discussion. There's discussion in the room, but no realistic discussion before it gets that far. Josh Rosen coming back. Everybody in the room hopes he does. Nobody thinks he will. But that it's more of tailoring it to the talent you have, not forcing the talent into a system that may or may not work for them. You know, at Oregon, he always had a pretty active recruiting pipeline into Los Angeles, but he wasn't necessarily recruiting the same kind of players that UCLA has on the roster for the next year or two or even 3 years. So he talked about having to adjust to what's there. And one of the things he said was he didn't want to be a coach who said, well, once I get my players in, He said, these guys right here, right now are my players. They are my kids. They are my players. We will work with what we have.
Tremendous. Chip Kelly, the new head coach at UCLA. It's been 19 years since the Bruins last won a Pac-12 championship. The early signing period in college football is just 24 days away. And I know Chip Kelly, from some of the posts that I've already seen on social media, is already raking in some high caliber, high talent players from Southern California and beyond. So, Tony, anything that we've missed from Mr. Kelly's first press conference?
Yeah, I think just a couple of quick things. When you mentioned the recruiting, the prize recruit of the class is Dorian Thompson-Robinson from Gorman High School in Las Vegas, and he reached out via Twitter, with a picture of someone doing a little dance, and pointing out that he is 1,000% committed. The style of play, if you haven't seen him this year at Bishop Gorman, fits any kind of offense Chip Kelly is going to want to run. The kid's got a strong arm. The kid's quick to the corners on the sprint out. He's tailor-made for a Chip Kelly offense. The other thing, on a little bit of levity, and Kelly was cracking jokes throughout the thing. There was a reporter who actually remembered Kelly playing junior hockey in New Hampshire at some point, and they reminisced about that from 40 some odd years ago. There was, that you and I had spoken about before, some people who had put together money on a GoFundMe page that were flying banners at the Arizona State game, calling for the firing of Moore, the dismissal of Guerrero. That plane, one of the planes with the banners, was hired for today, not for this event, but because part of their contract was they were still going to be flying out. They still flew today, or actually they're flying right about now outside, but the banner was changed. It says, "Welcome Chip Kelly to UCLA." So money diverted, money saved, money still well spent.
Well, I'm sure, I haven't seen the financial figures, but I'm sure that any amount of money that can be gathered would help leverage the Jim Mora buyout versus the Chip Kelly contract that I'm sure is going to be one of the top 10 to 15 in college football, something in that range. Tony Siracusa from Glassword on college football. He joins us just fresh off listening to Chip Kelly's introductory news conference there at UCLA. Chip is back. Look out, Pac-12 in college football. He is ready to roll, I'm sure, and ready to get back at it. He's a very competitive guy and wants to win, and UCLA fans are starving for big-time wins there in Westwood. Tony, we appreciate you breaking things down. Couldn't have done it without you. That you were able to report right from the news conference is a good thing for us, and we appreciate the time.
All right, Mark, always glad to join you.